Hi, Jessica here, Yoga for Everybody, representing Zen Active Sports, presenting my favorite yoga poses. Today, I'll be teaching the staff pose, so why don't we join together on our mats in a seated position. So from this comfortable seated position, we're going to want to check in with our alignment, like always, and with our base. So let's obviously narrow down the fact that the base of this pose is going to be the glute. So we're going to want to take the junk and move it away from the trunk and get a flat connection on the bottom of the sitting bone, the pelvic floor, okay? And then, of course, we'll want the shoulders down away from the ears. Chest is open. Crown of the head lifts up to the sky. Take a few moments to establish that deep belly breathing pattern, syncing the mind with the body. When we're ready to move on into the staff pose, let's start by bringing the feet forward, hip width apart, okay? Then we will want to just rest the hands below the shoulders by the glute, okay? So we'll spread the fingers nice and wide. We'll press the fingers into the mat, and the palms of the hands into the mat, nice and evenly. Take pressure off of the wrist. Okay, then you can experiment with the feet here. So we could either have them pointed or flexed, whatever feels better. And then when we're ready for a challenge, we can try shifting all of the weight into the hands. So trying to avoid leaning back. So keeping the shoulders in alignment with the wrists and just transferring the weight off of the glute and onto the hands. So still a little bend in the elbows, but obviously this is much more challenging for those arms. So when you're ready to come out of this pose, do so on the exhale of the breath, transferring the weight back to the glute and off of the wrists. Okay, go ahead and shake the wrists, give them a nice rotation back and forth, clockwise, counterclockwise. And for a nice counter stretch to this pose, take some pressure off the wrists anyways, we can come to that forward fold pose. So let's inhale, bring the arms up, and exhale to forward fold. Okay? And if we wanted to modify this pose, what we could do is we could use a strap so we're not having to fold forward quite so much. Okay, so if we wanted to use a strap, we would place it around the bottom of the feet and then we would experiment with the length until it was long enough so that we could just rest the hands near the belly, near the lap area, so the shoulders can remain down and away from the ears, chest is open, crown of the head lifts up. Okay, and then as you become more comfortable with the pose, you perhaps could hinge forward. Okay, still utilizing that strap. Okay, because again, if we're not quite flexible enough to reach the toes, we may find ourselves, hunching the shoulders up. So that's why it's nice to have that strap so that we can keep the shoulders down while still bringing the body into a deeper expression of the pose. Okay. And then, of course, after a while, we'll find that we won't even need the strap. You could just rest the hands on the mat. Okay, you keep them down here, just as you hinge. Okay, so notice as I hinge, I keep the shoulders down, the chest open, and just a flat back. Okay, so really be aware of how that chest is because of the fact that a lot of us have a tendency to round and hunch. So we're trying to bring the nose to the mat, okay? But that's not really what we want to think about. Instead, we want to think of it more as bringing the belly to the lap, okay? So just always keeping the shoulders in alignment with the hips. I cannot stress that enough. Like I said, a lot of people practice this pose incorrectly, and it really can do some long-term damage to the shoulders, and then of course the spine and the neck. So we really want to be careful about our alignment here, okay? But if we are more practiced in the pose, then we might feel as though we are comfortable going deeper into the pose, okay? But only if we can keep the shoulders down away from the ears and not up like this. For those of us who are kind of in the middle, we might want to make use of a prop, such as a block, to elevate the level of the floor. So, starting with the block in a vertical position, we could, of course, inhale up, lengthening that spine, and then exhale, hinge forward, and then we can bring the forehead to the block. Okay, so again, if we find ourselves able to still relax the shoulders here, if we do find ourselves tensing up, then, we want to keep it up here with the strap, okay? Because again, it's quite a challenging pose. There's lots of different versions of this pose that, will make it accessible and enjoyable for all bodies. And it really will. And honestly, if you can't even find yourself able to make your way down onto the mat, you can practice this pose from a chair, okay? You probably need more than one chair, or maybe you line your chair up by your couch or your bed or some other flat surface nearby so that you can be seated on a chair and then just prop your legs up on your couch or whatever flat surface you have available that'll keep those hips in alignment with the ankles, okay? Because again, the idea is anybody can practice yoga. The trick is just, modifying it to see what feels good, okay? So, with that said, we can continue to move deeper into the pose with props. Of course, is highly recommended. It's really nice to have the support of a prop. And if you don't, and we can hang out in this pose for 7 to 9 deep breaths. Gradually working our way down deeper into the pose with the exhale of the breath. And when we're ready to come out of the pose, we'll do so in a similar way that we did with the wide-legged forward fold, and that we will just use the hands to gradually and slowly work ourselves back up to an upright position. Key word being slowly, to avoid that head rush that comes from, folding forward for extended periods of time, okay? Because again, it's a challenging pose, and there's lots of different variations that you can experiment with, so you're going to want to hold this pose probably for 7 to 9 deep breaths, okay? So, then you can just, slowly bring the feet back in to a comfortable seated position. Thanks for practicing the staff pose with me here on Zen Active Sports. Be sure to stay tuned for more of my tips and videos on my favorite yoga poses at www.zenactivesports.com. Thanks again for practicing with me. Namaste.